Hello, I'm really excited to share this project with you. I'm going to be respraying this Cozy Coupe for our daughter. My vision is to turn it into like a miniature Volkswagen Combi, so it's going to have all the trimmings and the details that a Combi has. And also just because they fade a lot, and you know, I want it to match her cubby house and things like that. So a little bit of a DIY project, especially because we're in isolation right now. So I'm really excited to have you on this journey, and let's get started. So obviously the first thing you're going to need is, I've got my Cozy Coupe. I just picked this one up secondhand. I think it was Facebook Marketplace that I got it. I actually was able to get it for free, but you can pick them up fairly cheap. Usually most of the ones that I've seen are under $50, so that's pretty good. It doesn't have to be, I mean, you can see this one's quite faded. I was lucky to get one that does have like its fuel cap intact and it's got its horn and things like that, but there are ways around fixing if anything's missing, you know, as you do your touch-up job on it. So I've got my Cozy Coupe. I am going to be matching it to the cubby house that I did for her first birthday. So it's going to be white and a mustard yellow. So whether you do light or dark colors, it's really important that it's a good idea to prime it first. That's going to give you a neutral base to color on, and that means that any final colors will be a true color, as opposed to having, you know, the original red and yellow shining through. So I've got this is just a flat white primer. So I'll be using that to spray the entire vehicle before I add my final colors on. As I said, I'm going to be doing it white and yellow to match her cubby house. So the top will be white, which you can just leave as the primer, but I will most likely add an extra layer of just a standard spray paint, which is for use on plastics for the top, and also the detail at the front where the Volkswagen badge is going to go. And then and I'm really hoping this will come out the color that I think it is. This one is a Sun Power. The color is Sun Power by British Paints. So I'm going to be using that for the bottom, and if all goes well, it will be a very similar color to the front door of her. I'm pointing like you know where it is, but her cubby house is over there. Hopefully it'll be a similar color so that they can go together. The other things I've got to complete the transition to a Volkswagen Combi is on eBay I just bought a couple of things to finish the trimming. So this is an actual car trim. It's a chrome, like it sticks on, so it's adhesive. That's what I was looking for, adhesive, and that will provide the trimming around the front of the car. And I also got a little Volkswagen badge off eBay. I'm assuming it's legitimate, as opposed to just like a decal, and that will be going on the front like that, so that she's got her little Combi. So let's get started.
So I've put down just a drop sheet on the grass to protect it from the spray paint. Eventually, I'm just unscrewing the roof from the car. It's actually really easy to take off. There's actually only 2 screws which connect the roof to the car. And then before I started the video, I gave the whole car a bit of a clean, and then I've just taped all the wheels with some plastic bags. I'm sure you can probably work out how to get the wheels off, but I couldn't, and I figured it was just faster to tape them, so that makes life a little bit easier for me.
Okay, so now that I have taken the car apart and I've prepped the sections that I don't want to get the primer on, I am ready to start priming. Now the whole process is going to take me a few days, because you need to let each coat dry in between. So let's get started spraying the first coat of primer. Here we go.
I absolutely should have been wearing a mask at this point, but don't worry, you'll see later in the video that I did put it on. It's probably also a good idea to try and do it on a day when it's not as windy as this was, because I'm pretty sure I lost a lot of that primer into the air, and that is not a lot of fun.
The sun is very bright today, so for this next part I've just shifted across into the shade because otherwise you'd be blinded by the light. So I finished spraying the top and the bottom with the primer. Obviously now, because I'm going to be colouring the base of the car, I need to tape off the sections that I don't want any colour on. So I've just got some painter's tape and I'm going to be using this Glad Go-Between, which is like a thicker, it's actually like a freezer plastic, they call it freezer film. So I'm going to be using that to tape off the sections that I don't want to get the yellow on before I do the next painting. So here we go.
Using some sort of painters or masking tape is great even if you wanted to add a sort of design or anything else like that to the car, because you could layer up multiple times. I did have an idea of perhaps painting some flowers on the side, but I got lazy and decided that this was enough of a project as it was. So it is quite time consuming taping it up, but I think you'll see later on that the impact is pretty impressive when you peel it all off. So working with the go-between, I just folded it into place so you don't have to have the exact shape that you're looking for. I even noticed when I went to use it that the metal strip on the box that tears the plastic was gone, so I had to sort of rip it with my hands. But as long as your tape is securing onto the car itself and you're getting that line around the outside, then it will hold. You obviously just want to cover up everything, so it doesn't have to be a perfect shape or perfect size. You just want to make sure that it's securing over the space that you want to cover. You're about to watch me eyeball what the center of the front of this car is. If you're really confident with your ability to eyeball distances, then that's fine. But if you're a bit of a shocker with that, then I would highly suggest marking out a midpoint when you're taping the front, because the last thing you want to do is spray your second color and then peel it off and realize that you're completely off center and it's a bit wonky. So I couldn't be bothered getting a pen, but as I said, it is doable, and it's probably the best way to do it to make sure that it's completely symmetrical.
Okay, so I've now sprayed all the sections that I wanted to protect from the yellow. Hopefully I've done this right and it won't bleed through, so wish me luck.
Just an interesting point, I found that the colour spray paints as opposed to the primer actually adhered a lot better. I don't know if that's because it was adhering onto the primer. Maybe someone who knows more about paint can answer that question, or whether it was the paints were just better suited to use on this plastic. I'm not sure, but I found that by the time I got to that yellow coat, I had a much more even coverage than I was getting with the primer, and even sort of the white. So I was quite happy with how this coverage turns out.
Okay, so I have sprayed the yellow. Probably should have sanded a couple of spots on it, because I noticed that when the door opens and closes it kind of scratches a little bit of paint off, but that can be fixed at a later date, or I won't do it at all because who cares. But that's definitely something that you can do. Like I noticed there's a little spot at the top of the door and stuff like that, but I'm going to take off the tape from the protected areas. Fingers crossed that the spray paint didn't, that I did a good job and then it didn't leak through. So, and then what I'll do is I'll leave it to dry for at least a day before I start with the adding the details to it. So here we go.
Some tapes can actually be left for quite a long time, so this particular tape can be left for up to 2 weeks, so you don't have to take it off straight away, but do be aware of the limitations with the tape that you're using.
So it's turned out pretty cool. I'll just show you a little bit closer. So they're not bad lines actually. I'm pretty happy with those lines. I mean, they're not perfect. There's a couple of scratch marks which I might fix up later, but the seat looks pretty good, and it's got its lines up the side. So now I'm just going to trim around it. I'm also going to show you what I'll do with the wheels, but I'm going to let it dry completely now and let it sit for a bit before I finish those details. Okay, so I forgot to mention at the start that I was going to be working on the wheels as well. Obviously they're bagged at the moment, but they're white with a little red bit, and because obviously the car's not red anymore, I want to make it not red. So you don't have to do the wheels, but if you do, especially because I'm doing the combi look, which will have the silver trim, I've got a silver metallic, this one's a bright finish that I'll be using to spray the wheels. I'm not too sure how I'm going to tape them. I think I'm just going to try and rip through the bag and then just tape around where the tire is so that I can just do a quick spray on the wheel. But I'm going to try and give that a go before we put it back together and put the trim on. So here we go.
I also did this process with the steering wheel with the horn, because the horn was red. I don't know how well it will survive when a small child is beeping the horn, but at the moment it is now white.
So let's do a real-time removing of the tape and bag from the wheels so we can see her new chrome, what do you call them, rims? I think that's what you'd call them. Right, so here we go. So I've started on the front one. I'm just going to take the tape off. I'm taking the tape off, so I mean the spray paint is touch dry, but I didn't want to leave it too dry because I didn't want the tape to be too stuck, if that makes sense. So I'm going to remove it from the wheel and then try and take the bag off. Little silver rims. I'll just so we can see that. Awesome. Okay, so the last thing I need to do obviously is put the car back together and add the trimmings to it. I was going to do the trimmings and then put the roof on, but then I remembered that the roof is secured to the body of it with screws that have little bits of plastic. They used to have little covers on them, but these ones are broken. So and plus obviously the bolt itself, or the screw, is not white. So I'm going to actually put the roof back on first. Sorry, there's a bug bothering me. And then I'm going to spray just to cover up the bolts and the little bit of plastic so that they're matching on the thing. And I'm just going to do that before I put the trimming on, so that I don't run the risk of getting any spray paint on the trim. And then I will trim it and put the badge on, and we'll be good to go.
This part is a good opportunity for any touch-ups that you need to do as well. So with the little scratches that were on the white strips on the door, I just had an old paintbrush and I sprayed spray paint onto the paintbrush, or like I sprayed a little bit onto some old plastic and dipped the paintbrush into that, and then I just touched up the little scratch marks so I didn't have to paint the car. You're about to see me realise that I needed a pair of scissors to cut the trim, so I went and got it. But the trim is really easy to cut with just a pair of kitchen scissors, which is great when you need to get those corners right. And I did find it sticks fairly well. Don't get the adhesive stuck to your fingers because it ruins the sticky part. And I had to cut some of the tape off because I'd left it stuck to my hand. But it bends fairly well and molds around the side of the car. We'll obviously find out whether it's toddler proof, but I've always got a stack load more if it ever comes off.
And that's it, I did it. Our little yellow combi, it matches her cubby house. I think I'll tack on to the end of this video her seeing it for the first time. So I'm going to leave it in the garage until tomorrow and get a little shot of her seeing it, because I'll park it next to the cubby house so she can see it. I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously it's not perfect, like I'm not showing you right up like the itty bitty details, and it's got a few scratches and things like that, but I think I've done pretty well for a first go. So that's how I have converted my Cozy Coupe into a combi van. I hope you enjoyed. Okay, so I'm about to call Tilly out to come and see her car. What can you see? Wow, look at your car. What do you reckon? How cool is that? Can you drive it? Brum brum. Hey. Yeah, look at you. Woohoo. My sunshine girl. I love you.